What if I told you one of the most beloved treats on the planet exists because an 11-year-old boy forgot a glass of soda on his porch overnight? No lab. No scientist. No corporation with a research budget. Just a kid, a cold night, and a mistake he almost threw away. Today, that mistake is sold in nearly every gas station, grocery store, and ice cream truck in America. Kids beg for one on hot summer days. Parents keep boxes of them in the freezer without a second thought. It's so ordinary, so familiar, that nobody ever stops to ask where it actually came from. But the real story is far stranger than you'd expect. Picture a wooden porch in California, sometime in the early 1900s. A boy sits outside mixing himself a drink from powder and water, the kind of soda fountain treat kids love to make at home. He stirs it with a wooden stick, gets distracted, and leaves it outside as the sun goes down. He forgets about it completely. What happens next will accidentally create a billion-dollar industry. To understand how this happened, we need to go back to San Francisco, in the early 20th century. This was a city rebuilding itself, full of energy, immigrants, and new inventions arriving every year. Refrigeration was still a luxury. Ice was delivered by horse-drawn cart. And in the middle of all this stood a boy named Frank Epperson. Frank wasn't a scientist. He wasn't wealthy. He was just a curious child who liked experimenting with flavors, mixing powdered soda mixes into water the way other kids might mix chemistry sets. He wanted something fizzy, something sweet, something his friends would enjoy. That night, after mixing his drink, he left the cup outside on the porch, with the stirring stick still standing upright inside it. San Francisco nights can get surprisingly cold. Temperatures dropped far lower than Frank expected. And while he slept, something strange was happening right outside his window. The next morning, Frank stepped outside expecting a forgotten, ruined drink. Instead, he found something frozen solid, the wooden stick standing straight up like a handle. Curious, he ran the cup under water to loosen it, and pulled out a solid, fruity, ice-cold treat, frozen onto a stick. He took a bite. It was delicious. But here's the part most people don't know. Frank didn't immediately understand what he had. To him, it was just a fun accident, a strange frozen soda pop he could show his friends. There was no patent, no business plan, no idea that this would become anything more than a curiosity. For years, it stayed exactly that. A curiosity. Frank grew up. He got married. He had children. And somewhere along the way, he mostly forgot about that frozen treat from his childhood porch. Life moved on. He worked different jobs. He had bills to pay and a family to support, just like anyone else. But his kids remembered something their father used to make. Every so often, Frank would recreate his childhood accident for his own children, freezing fruit-flavored water around a wooden stick as a fun homemade treat. His kids loved it. They started calling it their father's Popsicle, combining his last name with the word icicle. At the time, it was nothing more than a family tradition. A fun little trick Dad knew how to do. Nobody imagined it could become a business. For nearly 2 decades, that's all it remained. A private family secret passed between a father and his children on hot afternoons. But by the 1920s, something had changed. Frank was now an adult with financial responsibilities, and he started thinking differently about that childhood memory. What if this wasn't just a fun trick? What if other people would pay for it too? In 1923, he decided to test the idea publicly, selling his frozen treats at a local amusement park called Neptune Beach in California. The reaction was immediate. People loved it. They weren't just buying a snack. They were buying something new, something nobody had experienced quite like this before. Frozen fruit flavor, on a stick, easy to hold, easy to eat, perfect for a hot day at the beach. The following year, in 1924, Frank filed for a patent for what he called the Popsicle Ice Pop. This should have been the moment everything changed overnight. It wasn't. Despite the excitement at the amusement park, turning a novelty treat into a nationwide product proved incredibly difficult. Frank didn't have major financial backing. Refrigeration technology for mass production and distribution was still limited. Manufacturing frozen treats at scale, keeping them frozen during shipping, and getting stores to carry them, was a logistical nightmare in the 1920s. Many companies overlooked it entirely. Some saw it as a passing fad, a quirky amusement park item rather than a legitimate product. Frank struggled to convince serious investors to take his invention seriously. Financial pressure began to build. Frank had a family to support, and turning a childhood memory into a lasting business seemed farther away than ever. Then, something happened that changed everything. Frank's own children still called his invention the Popsicle. But over time, as more people tried it, the name naturally shifted. Kids began pronouncing it differently, and eventually it evolved into something catchier. Popsicle. The name alone gave the product an identity, playful, memorable, easy to say. It sounded like something built for kids and hot summer days. Around the same time, the Great Depression hit the United States. Money was tight for nearly every American family. Luxuries were being cut everywhere. You'd think this would destroy a small novelty treat business. Instead, it helped it survive. The Popsicle was cheap. Extremely cheap. For just a few cents, families could afford a moment of joy during one of the hardest economic periods in American history. It wasn't a luxury. It was an affordable escape. Even better, Frank introduced a clever design feature, twin sticks in a single ice pop, allowing it to be split in half and shared between two children for the price of one. During the Depression, that simple idea meant everything. A single treat could bring joy to two kids instead of one, at a time when every penny mattered. Sales increased. Word spread. But Frank still lacked the resources to scale production nationally. Eventually, financial pressure forced him to sell the rights to his invention to a company called the Joe Low Corporation. It was a heartbreaking moment for Frank personally. The treat he had accidentally created as a child, the one his own kids had named, was no longer his. But it was also the turning point that pushed it into the mainstream. With proper manufacturing, national distribution, and marketing resources, the Popsicle exploded across the United States. Ice cream trucks began carrying them. Grocery stores stocked them in freezers. Movie theaters sold them during summer showings. Soon, nearly every child in America recognized the brightly colored, stick-shaped treat. What began as a forgotten glass of soda on a cold porch had become a nationwide sensation. Today, Popsicles are sold in dozens of countries around the world. Billions are consumed every single year. The word itself has become part of everyday language, so common that people use Popsicle to describe any frozen treat on a stick, regardless of the actual brand. Convenience stores stock freezers full of them. Ice cream trucks build entire menus around fruit-flavored ice pops. Parents hand them to children on scorching afternoons without a second thought. Nobody stops to think about where it came from. Nobody realizes that this everyday treat, sold on nearly every street corner in the summer, exists because an 11-year-old boy forgot his drink outside on a cold night. There was no laboratory. No corporate research team. No grand plan to invent a global product. Just curiosity. An accident. And decades of struggle to turn a childhood memory into something the entire world could enjoy. So the next time you unwrap a Popsicle on a hot summer day, remember that behind it wasn't just an invention. It was one forgotten glass of soda. One frozen stick standing upright in the morning light. And a moment that quietly changed the world forever.